Hi, this is Coach Hall. Welcome to Parenting Talk. In this episode, we're going to talk about what took place this past Tuesday, February 5th, in our Parenting Talk live session. We had a number of people show up, and the topic was on divorce and the impact it has on children. And we had a lively discussion. We had some people who have gone through divorce. They shared what is going on in their current situation. A few of us shared what happened to us as we were children when our parents divorced. So it was a nice, very touching discussion, and we touched on a few topics that I want to share with you today. So what we want to look at primarily is through the lens of the child. What will the child be experiencing? Because as parents, we want to do our best to make sure that this transition, and that's what's going to be happening, it's a major transition in their lives. They're moving from one singular unit to two separate households. And this shift is very difficult for adults to deal with, but from a children's standpoint, it could be traumatic for them. So we want to lessen the blow if we can. And there are a number of statistics that have been made available, and they're published in books. And I just grabbed a few and I shared them with those that were in attendance the other day. But basically what I want to share with you is really what the impacts are. And it's a little bit frightening, to be honest with you, because what tends to happen, statistically speaking, when you compare children who are a product of divorce versus those that are in a normal household where everything's fine and cozy, that the children that have gone through a divorce situation tend to be more at risk socially, emotionally, and academically. It can impact their behavior as well as their ability just to follow rules. This is an impact that you can see. It's very measurable. You can witness it. And if you see these things, then you know that it's likely not because they just want to misbehave, but because they're feeling some emotional impacts from this whole separation and divorce process. There are higher cases of anxiety, higher cases of depression, lower self-esteem. These are issues that children, again, that have gone through divorce deal with more so than those who are in a stable home that they don't go through that experience. A child that goes through a divorce, there's a doubling of a chance of psychological and social issues down the road. There are higher cases of antisocial and aggressive and disruptive type behaviors. And these problems can start, and usually do, in childhood, but they can continue on into adulthood. Okay, so what can we do to help our children out here? There are a number of steps we can take. Beginning with what we choose in terms of going through a divorce. Okay, if you're in a situation where you know divorce is imminent, there are a number of different types of divorces out there, and the best one that you can shoot for is a cooperative divorce, where everybody is going to operate in the most cooperative way possible. Now, I know that's a bit of a stretch if you just hate the other person right now and you want nothing to do with them. That makes a lot of sense, right? It's hard to think in these terms when we're highly charged with emotion and upset, and we don't want to have anything to do with this person that we want to be divorced from. But we need to take a step back and at some point really think about the impacts this will have on our children and our child's well-being, both short-term and long-term. Now, there are different types of ways to go about doing this. The most popular, that's trending higher in the U.S., is something called a collaborative divorce. And what a collaborative divorce is that there's a ward or somebody, it's usually like a child psychologist or something of this order, who is in charge or made in charge of the child or the children. They basically represent their interests. And of course, the parents that are getting divorced will have their legal representation as well. But all of these people get together and they really focus around this child psychologist or the person who's the advocate for the children. And they basically operate according to what they set in place. We need to do this for the sake of the children. So it eliminates a lot of the bickering, the back and forth. It also puts the attorneys themselves at kind of put some barriers on them so they don't just go after each other and drain both sides, because sometimes that's what attorneys do. They just basically wipe out all your life savings as they battle one another on your behalf to get more money in their pocket and work out the arrangement. It's supposed to be beneficial for everyone, but typically it's mostly beneficial for them. But we want it to be mostly beneficial to the child. So going for a collaborative approach would be your best bet. Now, some of you may be already beyond that. The divorce is over, and what do you do in that situation? Well, it's important to understand that our children are going to go through a grief cycle. They're going to experience perhaps a period of time where they just deny everything. Mom and dad will get back together. They're just having a little blowover right now. And it really isn't making any sense to them. And so rather than trying to make sense of it, they just pretend it's not happening. They're completely in denial of it. So this might be something that you experience as you deal with your children, as if they're just like, whatever. They're not really impacted by it. But obviously they should be impacted by it because something is happening. Their family unit is about to fall apart or is in the process of being ripped apart. The next stage of the grief cycle is anger. Sometimes they'll lash out at you or your ex or both, or maybe even a sibling or somebody that just get angry at the situation, and this is a very common step in the grief cycle. And by the way, when we go through these steps, sometimes we'll be in one of these steps longer than another, and they don't necessarily go directly in the order that I'm telling you right now. So it could be that you start with anger and then you just kind of go into a bit of denial for a while. But usually it's denial first and then anger. And then there's bargaining. Okay, this is another step. Bargaining is like you're trying to justify in your mind what happened. And a lot of times with children, the bargaining is that they made a mistake and that's the reason why the parents split up. This is the justification that they've come up with. It's my fault. If I would have done better, maybe if I'm a better child, maybe if I do better, maybe if I show love better, maybe if I behave better, they will get back together. And this is how they're bargaining in their own mind. And that's something we need to be mindful of as well. The next step is depression, where they just kind of shut off everything. They stop doing the things that they normally love to do, and they just kind of sink into a bit of a hole. And we want to be very careful about how long we stay in depression. We all go through depression when we have a traumatic experience of some sort. And so it's natural, so don't be overly alarmed, but you need to be mindful of the fact that, yes, they're going to go through a bit of depression, and we can help them through all of these steps. Okay, and then finally we get to acceptance. But again, it might not be a straight road into acceptance. I've had stories of parents telling me that their child seemed to be accepting for a while, and then suddenly they're back into depression or back to anger or back to bargaining again. So this step might not be the final step when you see it show its face for the first time. But these are the steps that they will go through. You'll go through these things as well as you try to recover and heal from divorce. Okay, so what we want to also be mindful of is what our children will worry about. Sometimes they'll open up to you. Hopefully you've got a strong line of communication with your children, and sometimes they won't. Sometimes they don't want to share what they're feeling because they are angry with you at the moment, or they're bargaining at that point. So they might be in one of these steps of the grief cycle, and therefore they can't really open up to you, or they don't want to open up to you, or they're so emotional at this point that they can't put thoughts to their feelings. So the question that they seem to be asking themselves is, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? Why is my family breaking up? What's going to happen to me is another thing that they ask themselves. What's going to happen to me? Sometimes they'll be in a situation where they may be with mom, because that's usually how it works out. They end up with mom, and so they're missing dad. They're just missing dad. Or maybe they're off with dad and they're missing mom. And so they can be depressed, and just wishing they were with the other parent, and not being able to really enjoy the time they are with the custodial parent or the parent that's taking care of them at that moment in time. Mom and dad left me because, or why did mom and dad leave me? Did mom and dad leave me because? Did they break up because of me? So all of these basically the same types of questions. They can be thinking of these things. Again, a lot of kids believe that they have a lot more power than they actually have, and they feel like maybe they had something to do with it. So obviously we want to address that concern with our children. Even if they're not talking about it, we want to make it perfectly clear to them that the reason we separated or divorced had nothing to do with them. Okay, and that needs to be repeated over and over and over again. Okay, what will my friends think of me? Okay, so there's a social aspect of it. Oh, your mom and dad got divorced. Ooh, this can impact them, not just at home, how they're trying to deal with it, but at school or in playgrounds or in any other after school activity or group or club that they may be a part of. So they're going to be concerned about how this whole relationship breakup is going to reflect on them. Okay, who will my siblings live with? Okay, so if you got brothers and sisters, the kids have brothers and sisters. Sometimes it happens that some of the kids go and live with one member of one parent, and some go. We want to rest assured that everybody knows what's happening, and these questions are answered because these are lingering in their head. Also, what will happen to the future? What will happen to me in the future? What will happen to my siblings? What will happen to my parents in the future? They're concerned about the future because things are happening and everything used to be a certain way and suddenly it stopped being that way. Could that happen again? What's the next thing that could go wrong? So oftentimes the future is a negative future as they see it. Which parent am I supposed to choose? Sometimes kids will be thinking that they have to choose the parent to go live with, or the parent that they're supposed to love, or the parent that's right. And these are the pressures and feelings that our children deal with and they think about. And so, again, when we have conversations with them, we need to address these possibilities and clear these thoughts up so they're not there anymore, okay? Will dad be upset if I'm happy with mom? Or will mom be upset if I'm happy with dad? So these are things that sometimes our kids, I remember in my own case, one day, it was actually Christmas Day, I'm driving the family, and my son's in the back of the car, and he's talking to his mother, who was my ex-wife, and she couldn't be with him on Christmas Day, and I heard my son answering the question, which was, how was Christmas? And he said it was fantastic. Dad was very nice, and we had a lovely dinner last night. We had a great, he's going on for about 5 minutes, how wonderful it is. And all of a sudden he stops. No, Mom. No, I don't love him more than you. No, Mom. So she started drilling him, and she was feeling bad. And in turn, he started feeling bad. So he, from that point forward, started having this complex of sorts that he couldn't be happy with me, nor could he be happy with her, because it was going to reflect badly on the other person. So these are things that children think of, and we need to address them as soon as possible. So what can we do when our kids are filled with worry and grief and feeling as if they're being betrayed? Because that's something else they often think and feel of, is that you've betrayed them or they've betrayed you. They also feel like they're invisible, like they're not being heard, like, stop fighting, Mom and Dad, get back together, and it's not happening, so they feel invisible. These are things that'll be going on in their mind. So what can we do to help them out? Well, again, as I said before, if you're just getting started, we want to try to go with a collaborative approach. But at all times, regardless if we're at the beginning of this process, or if we're well into it, or maybe you've already been apart for a while and there's just some issues still going on, and your kids are still feeling some of these things that we've talked about earlier, what we can do is try to establish a process where we are maintaining their routines. Okay, so whatever they were doing in their life, the schools they go to, the times they get picked up, the meals, whatever after school activities, whatever involvement was going on before the divorce, and when everybody was happy in the family, or whatever was happening before the divorce, those routines we want to try to keep them intact. So if dad was picking them up on Mondays and Wednesdays to take them to some event, after school event, or mom was picking them up and doing the same thing, try to keep those routines exactly the same. We want to be consistent, and we want to stay involved in their lives. You don't want to be turn into a situation where children are used to talking to their dad every day at a certain hour, and then suddenly it stops, because now it's more than just dad or mom's not in the house anymore. It's this other level of contact that's also ceased, and that's just another knife in the heart for a child. So if you can recognize what those patterns were before and then keep them in place. So maybe it's a phone call at night at the same time that you would normally talk to them face to face. You got to keep the routines in place and be consistent and be involved. Now, I know we're focused on the children, but there's that saying that you can only be as good of a parent as you are good as an individual. So you need to take care of yourself. Okay, this is an emotional time for everybody involved. So you need to really focus on where your energy levels are. If you're not into big exercise, start exercising. Start taking care of yourself. Eat good, solid meals, healthy meals. Okay, balance healthy meals. These things will help you reduce stress. It'll help you show and demonstrate to your child what to do as you go through these emotional and these actual physical changes, because eating healthy and exercising is actually modeling the type of behavior that you want your children to exhibit as well, and especially when you're going through something as difficult as divorce. So we want to stay on top of our own health, and we want to really open up our ears, guys. We need to really listen, not just with our ears, but with every part of our body. We need to look at the physical signs. If our kids are, not making eye contact anymore, if their speech has changed, if their patterns and, the way they walk change, if their just mood is completely changed, even though they're talking to you, there's something going on, and we need to address it. We need to get them to open up and let these feelings out. And we need to listen to what they say to us without judgment. And we might not like what they say. They may be very angry and say, "It's your fault." Okay, so you need to listen with love. Okay, unconditional love. They're going through a tough time. And they're going through it without the same cognitive capabilities that you and I have. Children are adults under construction, and they just don't have a way of understanding these types of dynamics on all the different levels that are taking place. Mostly when children, especially if they're under the age of 12, they haven't gone through puberty yet, they're likely to be highly egocentric. Everything's about them, and they're not going to understand what's going on. So they're going to be filled with emotion. And when you get filled with emotion, your intellect level even drops further. You act and react versus respond. And so what we want to do is be very mindful of the fact and have thick skin, because they're probably going to come at you with some tough verbal, explosion, really, because this is quite traumatic for them. Okay, a few other things before we wrap up here. We want to make decisions that are not covered by whatever agreement has taken place because of the divorce. In the USA, we have something called a timeshare agreement, which usually covers all, not just the custodial arrangements and when and where visitation takes place, but a lot of who's paying what and what everybody's agreeing to. And anything that's not covered by this agreement needs to be made not as an individual, but as cooperative parents. Now, you may be in a position where you can't talk to one another, so maybe you use email to send messages. That method might not work as well. We've had this situation in the past where we elected not to talk to each other, but just send emails, but they got nasty as well. And so we actually had to consider an arbitrator or a go-between who basically was like a filter to keep the message clean on both sides and just get to the important information that needs to be shared with parents and take the personal issues out of it. Okay, we need to respect each other as co-parents now. The parenting business isn't over. You're just in a new arrangement. You're not under one roof anymore, but you're still both equally responsible for your children, and you need to do your part. And sometimes there's going to have to be some communication exchange because decisions have to be made, and you need to figure out a way to do that in as respectable a manner as possible. Okay, also, if we're going to be in front of our children, we still need to respect the fact that our children are watching us. And how are we going to deal with another individual that we don't necessarily agree with? We're modeling that for them, and we should be modeling at our absolute best. Okay, separate your relationship feelings from your co-parenting feelings. Okay, remember, you're not married anymore. That part of your life is over. You need to make sure that when you go and have to deal with the co-parent, that's left behind. Don't bring up past. Don't bring up anything other than the topic that needs to be talked about. No bitterness, no talk about our past, no talk about our future together. The only future you should be talking about is the future of the children. So separate your feelings from your co-parenting. Okay? Co-parents need to share information and keep the kids from being in the middle. Okay? Don't be sending your kids over as spies or with notes, or you tell your dad this, or you tell your mom that. That's not their job. They're not couriers, little messengers, because what ends up happening is the message gets delivered, and oftentimes the parents jump on the child like they're shooting the messenger. And this is not good. Children don't want to be a part of that. They don't want to be the in-between. They don't want to hear negativity about the other parent. So don't discuss adult issues with them whatsoever. Don't talk about finances or any sort of legal matter with your children. Leave them out of it. This has nothing to do with them. The only thing they need to be hearing from you is how much time you want to spend with them, how much you love them, and what you plan to do with them while they're with you. Other than that, you don't need to talk about the other person because they don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear anybody talk bad about their mom or their dad. And not even if it's their own mom and dad talking about their mom and dad. They don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. So leave it out of the discussion. Okay? You can agree to disagree and just be an adult. Be an adult at all times. Okay? Don't engage in name calling. And if you can't agree with each other, just agree for the sake of the children. Okay? Just agree for the sake of the children. You can hate the other person. You can disagree with them. You can not ever want to see them again, and knowing that you're definitely going to have to interact with them. And you may hate the whole idea of having to interact with them, but just agree for the sake of the children, okay? Your children don't want to choose sides because they don't do anything but love both of you. And so you're breaking their heart if you disparage their parent, because that's what they are. Your ex is still your child's parent, so don't make them feel bad, okay? And always remember, as we wrap this up, to just always think of your children first and do your best to put yourself in their shoes and try to understand that they are highly emotional creatures and all this stuff is going to impact them emotionally. So do our very best. I hope this has helped. And if you have any questions and you want to talk about this further, please do so below. I'm going to supply you with a link to my course called Divorce: How to Heal, Feel Better, and Flourish. And this course, which is about 6 hours, will be loaded with a lot more of information just like what you've seen here. So if you're interested in that, take advantage of the discount coupon. It'll be available to you. It's 95% off the regular price. I'll make that available to you. Also, if you want to just keep this conversation going, comment on wherever this video is posted below. We can keep it going there. You can check me out on my Facebook page, Star Family Coaching. We can talk about it there. There definitely will be, this video will be posted there so you can have the conversation continue there. I can engage with you. And of course, we can create a workshop or some sort of event in the future to open this up and talk about more of the specifics moving forward. Okay, I plan on having another parenting live where we bring people in and we talk about this topic as well as many other topics. And with that idea in mind, if you have another topic in mind, please jot that down here below and I'll make a note of it. And at some point in the future, we will certainly cover that topic and much more. Okay, I'm Coach Hall. I hope you enjoyed this. And just know, guys, there's lots of love out there. Just go out and grab it, pull it in, share your love, and keep talking. Parents, just keep talking, because that's how we're going to all get better at parenting. Okay? Until next time, farewell, my friends.